Now, Big Finish Productions have been making Doctor Who audio dramas for well over 20 years now, and at the time of writing this, I've only reviewed the first story of the Eighth Doctor Adventures, Living Legends, and the second story ever released, Fear of the Daleks. Those are two ranges I've not even scratched the surface of yet, and yet there are tons more ranges and stories to review. So while this does leave me with a lot of options to choose from, it does also leave me with the dilemma of what to review next, and what should I review first from a certain range. Which leads up to today, where I think I will start what I think I could call a journey into the longest Big Finish audio range to date, as I dive into the monthly adventures. The range that includes hundreds of stories from the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Doctor. I doubt there's a fitter way to do this. You've read the title, I hope, as today we take a dive into July 1999 with the Sirens of Time. Sirens of Time was probably the best way to introduce this new Doctor Who format, giving us a multi-Doctor story and a format that fits in brilliantly as well, giving all three Doctors their own separate episode before leaving the last to combine all three together. It meant that new audiences could be introduced to these three all at the same time, which I feel helped all three actors, as it had been around and over a decade since we had seen Peter Davison, Colin Baker, or Sylvester McCoy play such an iconic role. Especially since these three Doctors were the main bulk of the monthly adventures for the first year, and honestly just the monthly adventures in general. Of course, Paul McGann did end up returning as well back in January 2001 with Storm Warning, but I feel that should be a topic for another time. So, let's take a look at the Sirens of Time. And a wee small note before we start actually going through episode 1, these episodes technically have individual titles. Episode 1 being The Night of Veli Shah, Episode 2, Ships of Destiny, Episode 3, Death of Wonder, and finally Episode 4, Nexus Point or Curse of the Temperon. And for my sanity's sake, I'm just going to use the name The Sirens of Time, because I'm lazier and it's a lot easier to do it like that. Now, let's actually start looking at the Knights of Time. The Sirens of Veli Shah, fuck. Okay, sorry about that, but so we start off the story with a telegram saying, Section 8 alert, unauthorized capsule imminent, while also hearing a TARDIS materializing. So if you want a story that cuts to the chase, then we're off to a pretty good start, I think. It appears someone wants to see the president of Gallifrey. It's not the Doctor, by the way. Or the Doctors in this case, I guess. It appears the Force is aiming to destroy Gallifrey and has technology beyond even the Time Lord's understandings. The Time Lords are clueless as to who they are, what they want, and all they know is that there is a Time Lord's Artron energy embedded in the time distortion. And only one person would be the reason for that energy coming from it. It's the Doctor. Now we get into episode 1 for real, as the 7th Doctor, played by Sylvester McCoy, is travelling in his TARDIS when a call comes in, but the Doctor sadly doesn't hear it. Also, I love how his reaction to it is that the Time Lords could at least have gotten a decent phone line when it came to talking to him. Now, he quickly exits his TARDIS and we hear the distant cries of someone shouting. Their name is Alenia, and right now they're being dragged into quicksand. During this little search for weeds and roots, we're also introduced to another main character in this episode, and that is Ruthly, played by Maggie Stables. And it's so weird for me personally hearing her voice, which is probably because I've become accustomed to her as Evelyn Smythe. Of course, before Evelyn would make her debut, Maggie played in a Bernice Summerfield audiobook in August of 1999, and then just 7 months later we saw Maggie again in The Marian Conspiracy, where she would go on to be with the 6th Doctor, going to several points in history, meeting Daleks, and even meeting the 7th Doctor in A Death in the Family, released back in October of 2010. But for now, let's actually get back to the Sirens of Time. Now, the 7th Doctor pulls Alenia out of the quicksand with the help of his good old umbrella, which definitely gets a better use than it did in Dragonfire. You all know what I mean by that, I hope. And it appears that Roofley didn't even pass Elenia's path, or at least didn't bother to go to Elenia, we could just hear her shouting instead. And then the doctor gives this line.
She? I didn't see anyone.
I think she was a female. My creatures and Rory, come on. Night's drying in. You need some dry clothes.
Now Roofley has gone off to see an old man named Sancroft, who appears to be bound to a wheelchair, and it appears that Roofley despises Sancroft as she has to do basically everything for him. From making his food, to carrying him to the bathroom, and also just treating Sancroft like a little toddler in all aspects. And yeah, I mean all aspects. As for the Doctor and Elenia, when they return to his ship, it appears his TARDIS has been locked and he can't get himself into it. We also get a nice moment as the Doctor gives Elenia his code, and we get a better understanding of Elenia's past. And a mystery starts to grow as it appears Elenia looks rather familiar to the Doctor. Elenia's ship has crashed onto the planet during an expedition, hiding it away in a deep freeze when the pilot announced the gravity of the planet was causing trouble. Then another ship arrives in the skies and lands down. It's not the first ship that's appeared either. There's been 8 of them from the past week, from Sancroft's knowledge. But all the ships have crashed down and left no survivors. That's what Roofley says to him, of course. The Doctor and Elenia have found Sancroft's residence when yet another ship comes into the planet's atmosphere, and you could dare say it's crash landing, forcing the Doctor and Elenia to run away as it appears all sorts of ships are coming in. Also, props to the sound designs of the spaceships. I mean, just take a listen to it. Now, it's far from perfect, but for $19.99, I feel it's very good. Helps you potentially imagine the size of the ship. It's the sound effects in audiobooks that really suck you into the story and make it feel so real, or to just help you imagine what it's all like. So the ships came crashing down onto the planet, and it appears that the remains of some of the crew are in it. It leaves the Doctor curious as to what species the crew is, as one of them starts to be born? Again, a pretty cool idea, I think, as it makes sense some species would maybe have been designed to incubate life within it. Machines shortly arrive and give the Doctor and Elenia, after they've politely introduced themselves, a mind scan, which from their reaction seems to be a very painful experience. They've ended up in Sancroft's home, his bedroom to be rather precise, passed out for a good few hours, which was caused by the mind scan, as the robots wanted to find out why the Doctor and Elenia were there to begin with. While Sancroft is being very cautious, so the, quote, old bag, better known as Roofley, doesn't come snooping around. Explosions go off outside the home, leaving the trio distressed when Roofley appears, and she seems to happily mock them, or Sancroft specifically, as the Drogers outside, the robots that mind scan the Doctor and Elenia, are exploding due to another species. Also, wee side note, I think the early days of Big Finish were far from afraid to use swear words. Now, I don't mean that you hear an F-bomb every 5 minutes, I mean it in a case where it's done where it fits, such as in this part where Sancroft says,
My God, what have you done, you mad old bitch?
I happily admit that that bit there caught me way off guard. Because at the time of listening, I hadn't really heard many audiobooks with curse words in them, but I kind of found it really funny. This was probably done to help fit with an older audience, as I doubt many children would really listen to audiobooks in 1999, or at least not really pay attention. Which is fair, as it can be a struggle sometimes, especially when you're not used to an audio format compared to a visual one. Sancroft also seems to know who's coming to kill them. It's the assassins, and he warns the Doctor and Elenia to run now or they'll be killed as well, as Roofley happily runs away to tell them where they are. Now, spoiler warning for the first part, so skip to this time frame if you don't want this part of it spoiled. Okay, I'm gonna guess you've all left, you've been warned. If you're still here, then don't blame me for having something spoiled for you. Okay, so Ruefully throughout the episode has been making a transmission through one of the machines. Hence why the Doctor and Elenia were found and mind scanned, along with why the assassins are here to begin with. Since she's disabled the planet's shielding, it forbids ships from landing safely, it seems. Once the assassins have landed, she's been laughing like mad, and the simple reason why is because she hates Sandcroft and has hated having to basically be his sort of slave, or carer if you prefer. It's a sadistic move which fits Ruefully perfectly. Now the Drudgers are rather cute to hear as they retreat from the assassins, as their weaponry does nothing against the assassins. But anyways, while Sandcroft feels that Ruefully simply did a deal and it being nothing personal, I personally think this is 100% a personal matter, and Sandcroft is just being kind to himself. It all comes to bite her in the bunker though as the assassins shoot Ruefully dead, and it's simply because there can't be any survivors. A fitting end to her, and her spitefulness and lust for freedom of Sandcroft led her to getting assassins through the planet to simply result in her own demise. We're also given a small insight as to why Sandcroft is wanted dead, and it goes on a personal matter. Now, Sandcroft is the first knight of Felicia, elected by the citizens of Galfador, and he was sentenced to eternal banishment, but it appears that that isn't enough in their eyes due to the suffering he caused. We don't know what those crimes are specifically, but it shows the citizens of Galvador are not happy, as these assassins of Galvador have seemingly searched for him for a long time, and they finally have found him. Unfortunately, so have the Doctor and Elenia, and they must join the same fate as there can't be any witnesses.
Have no quarrel with you, but we regret there must be no witnesses.
And that is episode 1 of the Sirens of Time, and also the first Monthly Adventures Big Finish cliffhanger. A little mouthful there, I think. Anyway. Overall, it is a good start to the story as it leaves you with a few mysteries, such as why Elenia was familiar to the Doctor, what crimes did Sandcroft commit, and what's the Doctor going to do this time? The characters and actors are beautifully done. Sylvester McCoy really sells a more kind Seventh Doctor, who isn't just thinking of a plan after plan, and being mysterious and shifty as well. And then Maggie Stables does a wonderful job as a maniacal witch sort of stereotype villain. The sound design is lovely with the ships along with the Drudgers' voices, which are just adorable to hear, honestly. The cool start that leaves you asking those questions. But for now, those questions will need to wait for an answer, as we leave the Seventh Doctor, Elenia, and Sandcroft behind, and find ourselves with the Fifth Doctor's turn of events. So we move into the year 1915, a year into World War I, in a submarine which is attacking another ship due to it waving the British flag. That ship just so happens to be the one that the TARDIS lands on, and it appears the Fifth Doctor, much unlike the Seventh Doctor, does have companions with him at this time. Now at this time, there were no companion actors in the stories. That would only happen moving forward. The Fifth Doctor does mention Tegan and Turlough though. Turlough's actor Mark Strickson would make his debut in the next Monthly Adventures audio, Phantasmagoria, while Tegan's actor, Janet Fielding, wasn't really interested in reprising her role at the time, and she would only return in The Gathering, released in September 2006. And then after that, it was nearly 4 years before she returned in July of 2010 with the story Cobwebs. Now the Doctor is once again warned to get in his TARDIS and leave, but he doesn't have enough time due to how hard it is to hear the Time Lords and distinguish what it is they are trying to say. He's quickly discovered by someone on the ship, and whilst he tries to get into the TARDIS, the ship comes under heavy fire from the submarine. Also again, props to the sound design for the ship as it goes under heavy fire. It just sounds lovely. But anyways, the Doctor and the girl barely survive and cling onto the TARDIS, which is termed the box, by the Germans on the submarine. We're given a small, sweet moment as Captain Schwager orders for the Doctor and the girl to be brought aboard the submarine as the Germans aren't barbarians. At least that's what Captain Schwager says. It's bittersweet, I think, as during the war, soldiers and captains probably would have hated what had to be done. I mean, on Christmas Day in 1914, the British and the Germans came out of their trenches and played football with each other. Moments like this show that no matter what, both sides were still humane. It just depends on how you look at it, though, I think. Now, Captain Schwager notices that the Doctor speaks German, but in an English-style accent, and mocks his clothing as well. Suspicions are rising as the Doctor doesn't know the girl's name and seems to only have a profession-style name rather than a more natural one like Mark or John, etc. Which is kind of weird since this is well into the time the name John Smith had entered the Doctor's life, but hey-ho, I'm not going to complain, I guess. Being interrupted, though, when another ship appears and forces Schwager to dive the submarine below the depths before they are under attack. So the Doctor discovers what the girl's name is, and that name is Helen. He also discovers the time period that he's currently stuck in. While Helen questions the Doctor, wondering if he's a German spy, the Doctor is busy conducting a plan to get back to his TARDIS and out of their makeshift prison cell, while above, the destroyer ships rescue those that survived while the others look out for the submarine, before the Doctor is taken to Schwager's cabin. Unfortunately, the Doctor's plan doesn't work too well at first. Schwager is determined to not surface due to the destroyers above the water surface, and is more than happy to accept the consequences if the information is captured or simply lost in the waters, being returned to the makeshift cell when he realizes that Schmidt has time distortion flowing through him. This time distortion then causes Schmidt to attack the Doctor as he hears that the
Stop it, for God's sake! You'll kill him! Oh, stop it!
The Doctor's life is forfeit. The Doctor's life is forfeit.
Help somebody!
The Doctor hears the Time Lords as well saying those words and is left baffled as to why they'd wanted to try and kill him. Whilst Vansel is getting given a tongue lashing for his actions, and it's hard to understand why, as time is at stake and the Doctor's placement is partly the reason for it. Schmidt's attempt on the Doctor's life is chalked up to him simply snapping due to the smells of the submarine and the constant pressures, while Vansel continues to try and force Schmidt to kill the Doctor, to find a weapon and wreck his mind. So Schmidt goes back to where the Doctor is placed and holds a gun to him, while the Doctor talks to Vansel and explains that he's trying to get out of his place. Now Vansel isn't listening though, which is admittedly a bit confusing right now as we don't know what exactly is happening. But Helen then manages to shoot Schmidt while the Doctor's shoulder is badly injured, and the Doctor's eyes betray him, which is a very fitting line for the Fifth Doctor, as the Fifth Doctor is currently trying to make Schwager take him to the command deck by holding a gun to him. And I feel it works perfectly, as the Fifth Doctor was the one who couldn't handle the death of the Silurians, the one who couldn't save Adric, because the Fifth Doctor never had the presence of his predecessor, and his own eyes betray him when he tries to bluff Schwager about shooting him. While Helen, on the other hand, will happily shoot Schwager. So it forces Schwager's hand to surface the submarine so the Doctor can get access to the TARDIS. He finally jumps out the submarine into the waters as the destroyer charges towards them. Which brings us to the end of episode 2, which is a decent episode that continues to leave you asking questions. About why the Time Lords are trying to kill the Doctor, why they need him to leave the area he's at. As for the other aspects, such as the submarine setting and Schmidt trying to kill the Doctor, it does feel a bit dull as it's mainly just people talking, saying this and trying to do this or that. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it isn't the best, along with the cliffhanger being very weak. And it's just the Doctor banging on his TARDIS door before saying that the Time Lords really want him dead. And that's all I really have to say on episode 2, so on to episode 3, where we get our first look at the Sixth Doctor. We return to Vansel and the Lord President, as the Knights of Veli Shah are continuing to appear around Gallifrey. Vansel has been viewing the Sixth Doctor, which leads us nicely into the main plot of the story, as the TARDIS appears to be being dragged into something. What this something is yet to be discovered. Before appearing to be outside his TARDIS as a woman appears and mistakes the Doctor as one of the delegates. taking him along the way to the delegate session going on. On the ship, we find out we are on the star Gadaseus, a primary vessel of the delegate's system, as the Doctor is led into the ceremony room, taking a seat in one of the spares and accessing the computer module, including snooping around and getting a better understanding of what is going on for him. Of course, someone tells him to turn the volume down on it, which in turn brings the Doctor back to reality. The ship then comes under attack from a massive vessel. It's more time distortion, a ton more as it sucks in all the delegates. We hear screams and cries for mercy and help as the time distortion fills up the ceremony room, and it appears everyone except the Doctor and the waitress have been aged to death. Pretty much all systems are malfunctioning, like this. Only the androids on the bridge of the spaceship have survived the time distortion, as they are not human and therefore cannot age, unlike all those with blood in their hearts. Now suspicions are raised once more as the Doctor remembers the waitress, named Ellie, being surprised by seeing him as she was busy working on the computer terminal. They can't be followed up on too quickly though, as creatures appear and start to surround the Doctor before being blissfully shot down by the android, or Alizenma. The Doctor then being happily distracted as he looks over one of the creature's bodies, while Helen and Alizenma have a go at each other, as Helen believes the pilot is the reason why the time distortion hit them, while Alizenma is angered due to the fact that he couldn't dodge them. We're also given more people to add to the death count. Ruffley and Schmidt from the prior 2 episodes, along with the 14 on the ship, added up to 16. Then there's the 2 creatures who were killed. We only hear 2, so that leads up to 18, but now, let's see how many Alizenma has to add to the body count.
Trying.
Yes, you certainly are.
Something has killed nearly 500 crew members and about 5,000 passengers.
That's everyone.
So, 5,018 people. Yes, Sirens of Time definitely did give us a massive body count. The first audiobook of the range, and we already have a score that will probably be hard to beat for quite some time. Anyways, Alizenma is quickly revealed to be an android to Helen, as the Doctor noticed that he didn't blink enough. An odd way to put it, but I mean, fair enough, honestly. Now, after the time distortion hit Alizenma, he has lost all understanding of the passage of time. Now, speaking of time distortion, it starts to breach the hull of the ship, forcing the trio to run to another sector and try to seal it off. Unfortunately, though, the door controls have been turned to nothing but dust and scrap, so Alizenma needs to shoot the support couplings to cause the door to come and crash down. Also, due to the course the ship has taken, it's still going through the time distortion, and shall go to a point where the whole thing will be torn apart due to said distortion. So it's a race against time for the trio to change the ship's course, or get off it instead. Now Wenzel has been trying to reach the 6th Doctor, as the Lord President is shot and killed, due to the Knights of Veli Shah's weaponry being able to inhibit and stop the regeneration energy. So yeah, the Knights of Veli Shah could basically become the Time Lords 2.0, as Vansal sends the message whilst being gunned down by the Veli Shah. We're finally given an answer as to what Ellie has been trying to do. She has a disc that's been playing a message that reveals a creature, and what happens to be the Doctor's TARDIS. This is when Vansel's message comes in through Alizenma, but Ellie shoots him as the time distortion fills the area. The same time distortion then causes the Doctor to be returned to his TARDIS due to the Temperon, and the Doctor then decides to fly away, which takes the Temperon out as well, or the Knights of Velishar, I think, to be more precise. We're then given the 3rd cliffhanger, and also this.
Beware the Sirens of Time.
Never hurts to have a good title drop in your story now, does it? No, I don't think it does. So that's episode 3, and it's rather similar to episode 2 in my eyes, in a case where it's mainly just waiting for the important stuff to happen, and leaving questions till the right moment, which isn't a bad thing, but these are around 25 to 30 minute episodes, so there's a lot of exposition going during the episode. as we are left with the same questions, such as why the Doctor keeps recognizing the girl, why does the girl keep appearing, etc. And now we finally move into the final part where all three Doctors will be united together to defeat the Sirens of Time. Now the Sixth Doctor realizes that the temporal has completely absorbed him into itself, before being transported away, and he ends up meeting his predecessor, the Fifth Doctor, and his future, the Seventh Doctor. They've arrived on Gallifrey in a strong state of decay, and we're given a nice reference to the three Doctors when 5, 6, and 7 contact their minds together to exposit information quickly. So we fly through all three Doctors' stages of events, getting the most important details and exposition of dialogues. Also, it's weird as the Seventh Doctor is the longest while the Fifth is the shortest when compared to both 6 and 7. It's also really funny just hearing the Doctors bicker with each other about the room being extremely small. It's always funny to know that the Doctors mock each other. It's akin to the second and third Doctor on their two appearances together, honestly. They're discovered though by the Knights of Veli Shah and are forced to plunge down deeper into the planet. And yeah, having the three Doctors together really pulls through, even just 8 minutes into the episode, as they're so charming and have such strong character together. Nicholas Briggs really just captures that essence that we also had in the three Doctors, but it takes it in a different fashion, as the three are busy on focusing on the situation at hand whilst simultaneously trying to work it together. And yeah, having the three Doctors together really pulls through, even just 8 minutes into the episode, as they are so charming and have such strong character together. Nicholas Briggs really just captures that essence that we also had in the three Doctors, but it takes it in a different fashion, I believe, as the three are busy focusing on the situation at hand whilst simultaneously trying to work together. It's just really fun, honestly, to see. But anyways, now the 6th and 7th Doctor run off to find and get into the Pinokikan, while the 5th Doctor is left behind as his leg's been injured from the fall. Now the 6th and 7th Doctor are busy waiting in what can be deemed a revitalization room, as the suit of armor is removed and they enter the revitalization unit. Once caught though and returned to their Knight Commander, we find out what the Veli Shah are doing. Now, spoiler warning, so skip to this timestamp if you don't want that spoiled. Okay, so the Veli Shah are using the Time Lord's regeneration energy to keep themselves alive. Their bodies are badly damaged and deformed. It's a lot like the chameleons in the Faceless ones, and there is also 3 nexus points, which are connected to the 3 incarnations of the Doctor. This is when we finally find out what happened to the 7th Doctor. The 7th Doctor has used the shielding to repel and blast the assassins away. The same goes for the 5th Doctor. He had changed the course of World War I a small chunk, as Alexander Fleming, the man who was meant to discover penicillin a few months afterwards, was killed by a man named Charles Vincent. That man was meant to die on the submarine, but the Doctor's interference changed that, causing humanity not to be able to fight the Veli Shah. Then we're shown the 6 Doctors, as the Doctor could have left the Temperon to suffer and the plan would have been halted for a long time. The Commander Veli Shah wants to send the 3 Doctors back to change what happened and fix their mistakes that they had caused originally. The Veli Shah want them to save their race, being escorted into a Type 70 TARDIS. Of course, nothing is entered, such as what the 3 girls, Elenia, Helen, and Ellie, were doing, which brings the warning of the Sirens of Time again. Now, unfortunately, the TARDIS core has been burned out. The news is given to the Veli Shah president via the 5th Doctor, while the 6th and 7th Doctor are busy trying to free the Temperon from its prison and allow it to speak. It's really funny as well seeing the 7th Doctor feel weird about holding a gun and struggling to properly shoot it. It fits his character, though, that he doesn't want to use guns. Also, context for this, the 6th Doctor and the 7th Doctor are being attacked by one of the Veli Shah Knights, so yeah, the 6th Doctor is basically attacking the Knight and the 7th Doctor has the gun. You're welcome. Now, the Sirens of Time are beings that feed among the chaotic energy, which has been given to the 3 Doctors due to their actions in the past 3 episodes. They need to use the Doctors, though, to create chaos, as they are the reason why they were locked out of their TARDIS and left with no one except the same running theme, and that was a girl. The Velisha president is one of the Sirens of Time, trying one last time to stop the 6th and 7th Doctors, but she's too late now, as the Temperate has told them all about the Sirens of Time. Unfortunately, since the Siren has the 5th Doctor, she can kill him and cause a massive rupture of time distortion. It's a tight bond of leverage, the Sirens holding the 5th Doctor, while the 6th and 7th hold the Temperon's freedom. And one mistake is brought in with the 6th Doctor's incarnation, as the 6th is the one who shoots the locks and sets the Temperon free. Which is extremely fitting, as the 6th Doctor was the one who was more attuned to violence, who was willing to hold the gun and kill the priest, rather than try and just find another way to solve the problem. The Temperon then appears to Sancroft, and Sancroft is finally killed for his crimes, and Charles Vincent is killed when a ship destroyer goes under from the submarine and sinks. The Time Lords are brought back from the dead, including Vansel and the Time Lord President. But Vansel still remembers being shot and all the events that have been happening to him before he materializes away again in his TARDIS. Now, as for the 3 Doctors, they are returned back to the 7th Doctor's planet, where Elenia, or the Sirens of Time to be more precise, are being forced to stay in the quicksand and sink to their death. And ruefully mocks the death of the girl as the 3 Doctors realize that they have to leave Elenia to die. There's also the little bickerment about the 6th Doctor shooting the lock before all 3 of the Doctors head back to the TARDIS, while the Sirens of Time's cries can still be heard, but never answered. That is the Sirens of Time, the first monthly adventure story ever released, so how does it hold up? Well, it holds up its ground, even nearly 24 years later, pretty strongly. All the actors are strong, and it has a very interesting villain in it. It leaves you asking questions all throughout the story before episode 4 allows them to be answered to you. While episode 2 and 3 feel a lot like they're just asking the same questions but in a different setting and style, it is needed to actually understand the story, and it does deliver when you finally reach episode 4. All 3 Doctors feel the same as they did during the time on the show. Their decisions match their Doctor's character. The 5th and 7th would probably struggle to fire a gun or even bring themselves to hold one, while the 6th Doctor would have very little issue with it. The 5th Doctor is the one who wanted peace, the 6th Doctor is the one who was brutal, and the 7th was the mysterious but also kind one. A mix of the 2 prior Doctors in my eyes. Along with a chilling ending as you hear those cries before the audiobook just ends. No outro music, no coming soon, just silence. Which of course may be because at the time, there was nothing to announce or really say, as it wasn't until 3 months later in October that the monthly adventures really started with the release of Phantasmagoria. It's probably the most ideal way to start the monthly range, or just a multi-Doctor story. It's the most fitting way to go about it all. Now, as for my ranking, I feel this story is a strong 9 out of 10. Episode 2 and Episode 3 do feel a bit slow, which is my only real issue with the story. In my eyes, there's no other issues with it, as it is a strong 4-part story. There's also a link in the description if you want to buy this audio for yourself, as it is only £2.99 in the United Kingdom, and it can be even cheaper depending on when you're watching, as Big Finish is known for their constant sales offers. Yeah, I am sounding like a bloomin' advertisement now, but why should I care? And in the bloopers. And now, the bloopers. Now, Captain Schwager notices that the Doctor speaks German, but in an English-style accent, and mocks his clothing as well. No. We're also given a small, I guess, sweet moment as Captain Schwager orders for... no. Once the assassins have landed, she's been laughing like mad, and the simple reason is because she hates Sancroft. And the simple reason why is because she hates Sancroft, and has hated having to be basically his... no, messed it up. Once the assassins have landed, she's been mad. Oh, for goodness sake. Once the assassins have landed, she's been laughing like mad. And the simple reason why is because she hates Sandcroft and has hated having to No. Once the assassins have landed, she... Now, Captain Schwager notices that the Doctor speaks German, but in an English-style accent, and mocks his clothing as well. Which is kind of fair, I guess. Now, suspicions are rising that the Doctor doesn't know the girl's name, and seems to only be... No, that's not it. So the Doctor and the girl, who we finally find out are named Helen, and the time period, is discovered by the Doctor as well. So the Doctor and the girl, who we finally find out is named Helen, and the time period is discovered... Being interrupted, though, when another ship appears and forces Schwager to dive the submarine below the depths before they are under attack. Meanwhile, the Doctor and the girl, who we finally find out is named Helen... That sentence makes no sense. Oh, jeez Louise. Because the Fifth Doctor never had the present... Nope. Gosh darn it. Taking a seat in one of the spares and accessing the computer module... Module? Where am I getting module from? Taking a seat in one of the spares and access... Which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it isn't the best, along with a cliffhanger being very weak, as it's just the Doctor banging his TARDIS door before saying... What am I trying to say? I'm trying to figure out what the Doctor's saying, and I can't even figure out what my own saying. Goodness me. And yeah, having the three Doctors together really puts... Now, speaking of time distortion, it starts to breach the hull of the ship, forcing the trio to run to another sector and try to seal it off. Unfortunately, the door controls have been turned to dust and scrap. It's just really fun, honestly, to see, but anyways, now the 6th and 7th Doctor run off to find and get into the Ponikikan? It's really funny, honestly, just... It's just really funny to... No, for... No. It's rather funny as well seeing the 7th Doctor feel weird about holding a gun and struggling to properly shoot. Well, it holds up its ground even nearly... Hey there, thanks for watching the video. I'm very happy you made it to the end. If you want to help support my channel, then please give a like down below and hit the subscribe button too, along with the bell icon to make sure you get notifications for when I upload my next video. Mainly because at the moment my release schedule isn't final. If you want to support me further, then you can go and check out my TikTok account or my Patreon page where you can pledge to see what's behind the scenes that went into making this new video. If you want to watch another video from my channel as well, then they should be appearing on the screen now. Other than that though, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or night, and I'll see you again soon in Pixel Reviews. Goodbye!